After rebirth, my sister swapped her room key with mine. Her hands trembled with excitement. Sister, you've already spent a lifetime as Mrs. Jiang. Shouldn't this overwhelming fortune finally be my turn? After a night of passion, my sister emerged with unwavering confidence in her smile. In your past life, did you also get pregnant on the first try and rise in status through your child? Looking at her belly, I smiled too. Hi, my little supermale syndrome baby. No, my little nephew. Hello everyone. Welcome to Glimmer of Love. In our previous lives, every New Year and holiday, my sister would complain to me about her unhappy marriage. Sonyajin is utterly stupid, having worked at the company for 5 years and still just a small manager, completely hopeless. All he does every day is wash clothes and cook at home with no masculinity at all. Brother-in-law is so much better, successful in his career, wealthy and affluent. Sis, is that dress you're wearing today the latest from Dior? It looks absolutely stunning, she said as she reached up to grab my sleeve. I quickly stopped her, only to be met with my sister's annoyed complaint. A couple of touches won't break it. How stingy. You're just lucky. Staying at a hotel and ending up with the wrong keycard, rolling around with the CEO of Jiang Corporation. If it had been me who entered that room at that time, I was only focused on hiding the countless scars beneath my glamorous dress, completely oblivious to the envy in my sister's eyes. The CEO of Jiang Corporation, my husband Jin Yubai. As if sensing our discussion about him, he turned his head and gave me a gentle smile overflowing with affection. Everyone praises him as a devoted husband, saying how lucky I am, with my sister's voice being the loudest, piercingly so. But I shuddered violently. No one knows that Jin Yubai is sick, a madman, a sadist. I'm being tortured to death by him. Unexpectedly, in the end, I didn't die at Jiang Yubai's hands. Instead, I died at the hands of my own younger sister, Tan Shuang. Because of her constant ridicule and mockery, Sonu had an affair. On the day of the divorce, Tan Shuang didn't seek revenge on her unfaithful husband or his mistress, who knowingly became the other woman. Instead, she stormed into my home wielding a knife. Tano, you're just lucky to have married. Well, now that Sonu has abandoned me, you must be even more pleased with yourself, right? My life is already ruined, and I won't let you have it easy either. With that, she plunged the knife into my artery. And because Jin Yubai had locked me beside the toilet all night the day before, I didn't have the strength to resist. Before she could cry out that your brother-in-law was worse than Sonu, that he was a demon, she breathed her last. Haha. Once again, Tan Shuang's mad laughter rang in her ears. I suddenly opened my eyes. In her dying moments, Tan Shuang's face, twisted with jealousy, overlapped with her current face, contorted with excitement. I suddenly realized Tan Shuang and I had been reborn together. Mom, I want this room. Tan Shuang moved swiftly with a hint of urgency, as if afraid I would compete with her for it. She took the hotel room that was originally booked for me from my mother's hands, squinting my eyes. I guess that this must be the time when our family of 4 went on a trip and I first met Jin Yubai, right? You were just lucky, getting the wrong room key while staying at a hotel, and ending up rolling around with the CEO of Jiang Corporation. If it had been me who entered that room, the words of Tan Shuang from my past life echoed in my ears. I gazed into her crimson eyes and listened to her voice, slightly distorted with the thrill of a wish fulfilled. A faint smile curled at the corners of my lips. Sure, I nodded. Then I let Tan Shuang swap her room key with mine, twisting the room card in her hand. Tan Shuang stood before the corresponding door, lowering her voice with a hint of madness gleaming in her eyes. Sister, you've already spent a lifetime as Mrs. Jiang. Shouldn't this overwhelming fortune finally be my turn? Don't worry, once I marry brother-in-law, no I mean Xiao Jiang, I'll toss you a few $1,000 as compensation for killing you in your past life. With that, she eagerly pushed open the door, ready to embrace her brand new life. I couldn't ask for more. Tan Shuang wants to swap lives with me. Perfect. I didn't want to follow the same path as my previous life anyway. My gaze fixed fiercely on the closed door, as if I could see through it to that wolf in sheep's clothing inside. And as for Tan Shuang, this life that meets no good end. After gazing for a moment, I walked away lightly humming a tune. What a sky-high storm. Finally, it doesn't have to land on my head. That night, I slept my first peaceful sleep in 2 lifetimes. There will no longer be a man who suddenly flies into a rage, dragging me to the ground and beating me violently, nor will anyone attack me, both physically and psychologically. When I drew back the curtains, the sunlight was just right, and the breeze was playful. Unlike me, Tan Shuang had just experienced a night of passion. When she emerged from that room again, her face was brimming with blissful smiles. When I saw her again, that bit of happiness turned into certainty. Sister, in your past life, did you also hit the jackpot like this, gaining status through your child? As she spoke, she caressed her still flat belly. I'll soon be able to replace you. I hadn't even had time to congratulate her when our parents, along with Zhen Yubai, happened to come out. Upon seeing a man emerge from Tan Shuang's room, my parents flew into a rage. Who are you? Why are you in my daughter's room? What have you done to her? As she spoke, my mother rushed forward to slap Zhen Yubai across the face. A disgusting feeling welled up inside me, facing the same situation in my past life. I didn't receive such good treatment. Slap. In my past life, my mother also swung her hand. Only that slap landed on my face. Just turned 18 and already seducing men. You're bringing shame to the Tan family. I've always known that my parents favored my younger sister more, but if not for this rebirth, I would never have realized how blatantly obvious their favoritism could be. They used words like shameless and disgraced to describe me, the victim. Yet she held her sister, who had gone through the same ordeal, in her arms, soothing her tenderly with words of endearment, calling her darling. My gaze swept inch by inch across the faces of everyone present. This time I want every single one of them. Tan Shuang, who envied me and sought to take everything from me. Parents who gave birth to me but don't love me. Zhen Yubai, who abused me. All of them better off dead than alive. Mom, this gentleman has nothing to do with it. He was also drugged, which is why he acted that way toward me. He's definitely not some ruffian. We're both victims and shouldn't be blaming or hurting each other anymore. Tan Shuang appeared reasonable and understanding, seemingly trying to project an image of a clear-headed woman and impress Zhen Yubai. Then she gave my parents a warning look. How could she allow her unsuspecting parents to ruin her plan to steal my life of luxury? Years of tacit understanding between mother and daughter meant my mother didn't make a scene. Instead, she changed her tune and started demanding an explanation from Zhen Yubai. But Zhen Yubai didn't, as in the previous life, immediately promised to marry me and take responsibility after our intimate encounter. Instead, he just casually remarked, "$1 million, is that enough?" What? Tan Shuang froze on the spot, her eyes widening in disbelief. My mother, however, could no longer hold back. Her protective instincts drove her completely out of reason. Her eyes burned red as she cursed Zhang Yubai. My daughter lost her chastity because of you. Forget about marrying her to take responsibility for her reputation. How dare you try to settle this with money, you beast? Do you think my daughter is some kind of prostitute? Zhang Yubai let out a cold, mocking laugh. A one-night stand, and you're bringing marriage into it. Yuking dynasty folks sure do live long lives. If it weren't for the inappropriate setting, I might have burst out laughing. For the first time in both my lifetimes, I heard something pleasant come from Zhang Yubai's mouth. After writing the check, Zhang Yubai left without so much as a backward glance. Only Tan Shuang remained stubbornly holding on, her tears threatening to fall but never quite doing so. She had always been her parents' darling, and seeing her like this only made my parents ache for her more. The three of them seemed on the verge of breaking down together. Meanwhile, I stood there like an outsider, completely out of place. In my past life, I once asked my mother why she treated Tan Shuang better than me, even though we were both her daughters. You're the older sister. Why have you always been competing with your younger sister since childhood? Shuang is younger than you and needs more help from our parents. Isn't that perfectly normal? And let's talk about Tan Shuang. Search your conscience. Shuang is lively and considerate while you always wear a gloomy face as if our family owes you money. Although they say both palms and backs of hands are flesh, can't I prefer the daughter who's more attached to me? Does becoming a mother mean I can't have my own preferences? She said so, and she acted accordingly. So at this moment, she repeatedly assured Tan Shuang that she would definitely seek justice for her, and never let her suffer bullying in vain. Tan Shuang also took the opportunity to express that she had probably fallen in love with Zhang Yubai at first sight, and that marriage wasn't entirely out of the question. Love at first sight? More like love at first sight of money. When someone's hellbent on self-destruction, nothing can stop them. Perhaps my mocking gaze was too piercing. After sending her parents away, Ten Shuang dragged me into her room. Not a trace of vulnerability remained as she glared at me fiercely, demanding, "Ten Ho, was this your doing?" I pleaded my innocence. "We've all just been reborn. Haven't you noticed whether I've had any contact with Jin Yubai or not?" Tan Shuang realized this was true and resumed threatening me. "Tano, you've already lost the advantage in this lifetime. Don't entertain any improper thoughts. Or else, if I could kill you once, I can kill you a second time. Even if you tattle to mom and dad, it's useless. Who would believe we've been reborn? Even if they did, they love me so much they'd never take your side. The person Tan Shuang longs for, Jin Yubai, is a pervert. His greatest hobby is training dogs. I'm the one dog he could never tame. So, he spent the most time on me and became utterly obsessed. I've known all this from the very beginning. The reason he proposed marriage to me immediately after that reckless night in our past life was precisely because I resisted desperately that night. What attracted him wasn't my appearance, but my rebellious spirit and the sense of conquest only I could bring him. Scanning the mess in Tan Shuang's room, I frowned in disgust. Last night she must have been very cooperative, right? So cooperative that it completely failed to stir Jin Yubai's desire for challenge. Unable to satisfy his perverse cravings, crossing my arms, I spoke coldly. "Even if I don't compete with you for Jin Yubai, you still can't have him, can you? He seems utterly uninterested in you. So what if you've been reborn? He still only likes me, not you." Under my provocation, Tan Shuang's face darkened as she remained silent for a long while, her eyes darting back and forth as if searching for a countermeasure. Finally, she let out a light chuckle. "Yes, he likes you. The aloofness and playing hard to get. Sister, thank you for waking me up." Watching Tan Shuang's confident demeanor, I nodded in satisfaction. She's got some brains but not much. As for Jin Yubai, he's a fool too. Actually getting seduced by someone imitating my tenacity. Just how much did he love the me from his past life and my parents loving me and by extension him? They began to accept this wealthy and respectable future son-in-law, dismissing their initial quarrel as nothing more than a misunderstanding. A month later, just like in my previous life, Tan Shuang started experiencing morning sickness. I still remember back then when the pregnancy was confirmed. My parents slapped me hard in front of all the medical staff. They scolded me for getting pregnant before marriage, blaming me for tarnishing my sister's reputation. With a sister like you, how will your younger sister ever find a partner? Won't you be gossiped about behind her back? You're shameless. Why drag the whole family down with you? After that, I was given away to the Jiang family by my parents without a single dowry or even a wedding ceremony. Just a marriage certificate with genuine signing. Walk slower. Be careful with my precious grandchild. Lost in memories, I saw my mother return from the hospital supporting Ten Shuang. After helping Ten Shuang sit down, she immediately turned and yelled at me. "Tencho, are your two eyes just for decoration? Your sister is pregnant. Don't you know to pour her a glass of water? There we go. That ferocious expression, that's my mom for you." Yet somehow, deep in my heart, there remains a hidden corner with inexplicable traces of anticipation. So I asked, "Ten Shuang got pregnant before marriage and you don't mind, but my mother didn't care at all? Don't talk nonsense. Your sister and her husband were deeply in love and couldn't help themselves. What do you mean by pregnant before marriage? How crude. It's just having the child first and going through the formalities later. It's all the same." As she spoke, she seemed to remember something and hurriedly picked up her phone to call Jiang Yubai with the child on the way. It's time to discuss marriage arrangements. Surprisingly, the Jiang family, who had always avoided the topic of marriage, agreed without hesitation upon hearing Tan Shuang was pregnant. Catching sight of the smiling mother and daughter from the corner of my eye, I felt immense satisfaction. Laugh now. Soon you won't be laughing anymore. To prevent obvious pregnancy showing later and attracting gossip, my parents quickly finalized Ten Shuang and Jiang Yup's wedding plans, mobilizing all their resources to book venues and arrange wedding dresses. They vowed to give their daughter an unforgettable wedding. Just as everyone was busy preparing for the wedding, I moved out under the pretext that staying at home would make it inconvenient for my future brother-in-law to visit. In my past life, I got married and had children right after graduation, missing out on too many opportunities. This time, someone took over all my misfortunes, so let me do the work I want to do and live the life I want to live. On the wedding day, as her biological sister, I naturally attended. Staring at the extravagant wedding dress I had never worn before and a table full of rare delicacies that looked incredibly expensive, my heart remained utterly unmoved. When it came time for toasts, Ten Shuang deliberately pulled me into a show of sisterly affection, whispering words only the two of us could hear. Tenno, you're such a fool. You couldn't even hold on to such a wealthy man, letting me snatch him away so easily. Thank you. The mansion is very comfortable to live in. And a Rolls-Royce is much nicer to ride than the subway. But what a pity. You're destined to stay poor for the rest of your life. I accepted her taunts without resistance and gracefully drank the wine in my glass. Trash pickers love fighting over garbage the most. Congratulations, little sister. You and your husband are truly a match made in heaven. So very compatible, equally despicable. Tan Shuang clearly didn't catch the implied meaning in my words and continued strutting around like a peacock, flaunting her so-called perfect love at every table. After marriage, Tan Shuang got exactly what she wanted, living the wealthy housewife life she had dreamed of for 2 lifetimes. Wearing dresses worth millions and carrying limited edition handbags, beautiful instruments of torture, she acquired one set after another. Beyond that, her most frequent activity was, of course, flaunting them in front of me, boasting about how happy she was after stealing my life while taking pleasure in watching me fall from grace into misery. When she found out I was working overtime every day and barely making over 10,000 a month, her urge to show off reached its peak. Tenno, in our past life, when I complained to you about that useless song, you kept saying, every family has its own troubles and one should be content. But deep down you looked down on me, didn't you? You lived so well, enjoying only the finest things, long forgetting how the poor struggle to survive. Since you're so mentally resilient this lifetime, you can savor the joys of 996. Putting down my coffee, I squinted my eyes to examine Tan Shuang as she is now. Clothes make the man. And nowadays, Tan Shuang truly looks more glamorous than she did in her past life. Dear sister, is that a Patek Philippe on your wrist? What a nice watch. Failing to catch the hidden meaning in my words, Tan Shuang instead thought I was complimenting her, stroking her belly. Her pride was unmistakable. Look, I told you rebirth doesn't increase IQ. Watching her movements, I recalled what the doctor told me after the amniocentesis in my past life. I smirked sinisterly. I heard Tan Shuang use connections to check the baby's gender. It's a boy. It's great to have a boy, so he can perfectly inherit Zhen Yubai's genes. Just after Tan Shuang came to see me at the bidding meeting the next day, I encountered the person I had been avoiding since my rebirth, Zhen Yubai. My heart skipped a beat. Although in this lifetime it was Tan Shuang who had the relationship and marriage with him, a man like him isn't bound by any ethical norms. If he sets his sights on me, there's no guarantee he won't reach out his claws toward me again. So I've been pretending to be docile, acting like a lamb, minimizing my presence as much as possible. But I never expected that just as I was confidently and calmly presenting our company's proposal to the entire audience, Zhang Yubai was also in the audience. I thought I could finally relax after finishing a day's work. But he cornered me in the parking lot in a deserted spot. The man's tall frame pressed toward me with overwhelming pressure, trapping me between him and the wall, leaving me breathless. Memories of being whipped and abused by this very man flooded my mind. Back then, I would call the police every time he hit me to make me obey. He would chain me up like a dog, place the food on the ground and let me crawl to eat it. At first, I struggled violently while he watched with amusement, deriving pleasure from my resistance. 3 days passed, and I fainted from hunger beside the dining table. Yet I never lost my dignity. It was also during that time when Zhang Yubai's obsession with conquering me reached its peak. He often did things that ordinary people simply cannot endure, not letting me wear clothes, not allowing me to go out, forcing me to kneel and endure his sexual abuse in public. He is a well-dressed, gentle, and considerate gentleman. Behind closed doors he tortures me until I'm covered in wounds. My fear of Zhang Yubai was almost ingrained in my bones. Noticing my trembling, Zhang Yubai's eyes gleamed with even greater interest. Sister, afraid of me? It took me a long time to gather my courage before I finally regained my voice and my usual meek demeanor. I know Jang Yubai dislikes dull, lifeless people the most, so I didn't dare struggle even a little. The parking lot is too cold. Brother-in-law, what are you doing here? Is Shuang here too? As I spoke, I tried to use looking for my sister as an excuse to break free, but he grabbed my wrist tightly. He lowered his head and gently sniffed at my wrist. Sister seems different from usual. When I saw those deep, probing eyes beneath his gold-rimmed glasses, my heart sank heavily. I'm done for. No matter how hard I try to guard against it, I still can't escape. Could it be that even after rebirth, I'm still fated to be noticed by Jang Yubai? What does he even see in me? Why does changing myself still not work? A fierce glint flashed in my eyes as I forcefully broke free from Jang Yubai's grip. If escape is useless, then face the confrontation head-on, disgustedly wiping the spot Jang Yubai had touched. My tone couldn't conceal the contempt within. While your wife is pregnant, brother-in-law, you still harbor such frivolous thoughts. Aren't you afraid I'll tell Shuang? Jang Yubai leaned against the wall instead, spreading his hands. Well, suit yourself, sis. Shameless. Not wanting to waste another word on such a person, I turned and walked away. Jang Yubai spoke up again behind me. Sister is so charming. How did I not notice it back then? I have a feeling sister belongs to me. After this incident, I intensified my preparations to deal with the Jang family. Thanks to my pathetic life in my previous existence, Jang Yubai never took me seriously. The confidential documents in his study, his business calls, he almost never avoided me. Closing my eyes, I recalled every single detail. When I opened them again, I already had a perfect plan. Although I didn't actually tell Ten Shuang about Jang Yubai harassing me, she still found out when my mom's relentless calls summoned me back home. I had just opened the door when I heard Ten Shuang's tearful voice. She's always been good at fake crying and playing weak to win our parents' sympathy. Mom, someone's trying to seduce you. Did her husband cheat on her again? I glanced at Ten Shuang in surprise. Why does everyone who gets involved with her end up cheating? It wasn't until Ten Shuang pulled out a photo that I stopped mocking her in my mind. It was a photo of Jang Yubai stopping me in the parking lot that day. I don't know who took the sneak photo, but fortunately, due to the angle and height difference, Jang Yubai completely blocked me. My face wasn't visible at all. Tano, your company is also at this bidding conference. Do you know who that seductress is? Although Ten Shuang phrased it as a question, her gaze was unmistakably asking me, was it you? I have to admit, her intuition is spot on, but I couldn't admit it. With my brother-in-law's wealth and looks, there's no shortage of women throwing themselves at him. How would I know which one it is this time? Hearing my words, Ten Shuang indeed thought that in our past lives, just like her, I had also experienced Jang Yubai being seduced by someone else. She clenched her fists tightly in anger. Meanwhile, my mother kept cursing on her behalf, trying to seduce someone else's husband. Be careful, your whole family dies out. Did this homewrecker lose her mother too early with no one to teach her manners? Clearly following in her mother's footsteps. I bet her mom was a homewrecker too. Like mother, like daughter. How terrifying. My mom keeps cursing herself non-stop, saying the most awful things about herself. When she finally finished cursing, Tan Shuang spoke viciously. So what if I'm the other woman? Only I carry the Jang family's precious golden grandson. As long as Yubai's parents still value me, no one can shake my position. I won't let anyone who tries to destroy my family get away with it. As she spoke, she glared at me venomously, her words dripping with insinuation. Perfect. Between us lie the grudges of 2 lifetimes and 1 life of mine. She doesn't want to let me off. Well, I don't want to let her off either. Yes, teach them a lesson. But my dear daughter, you should also take care of your health. Mom, I didn't come back today just because of that mistress. There's another more important matter. A more important matter. Tan Shuang looked at me suspiciously. My gaze eventually settled on her stomach. Sure enough, Tan Shuang pulled out a report from her bag. Sitting up slightly straighter, I glanced at the report and suddenly understood. Then overwhelming joy surged within me. Heaven has been kind to me. Tan Shuang presented her amniocentesis report. Mom, the baby in my belly has XY syndrome. My parents were completely stunned upon hearing this. What male? Tan Shuang explained to them with both frustration and worry for a long time before they finally understood what kind of illness this was. You mean this child has an extra Y? Y? By what? Y chromosome. Normally males have XY chromosomes and females have XX, but this child is different. Oh, so isn't this the manliest of men? Inning, you should be happy. Hearing my parents still only half understanding, Tan Shuang was practically fuming with anger. How could I possibly be happy? Do you two illiterates even know the dangers of XY syndrome? I looked it up. This child is basically born evil, highly likely to develop antisocial personality disorder, and could kill the whole family someday. Even the doctor suggested I consider whether to keep him. With this sudden science lesson, my parents were clearly frightened. Then let's terminate it. No matter how important a grandson is, he can't compare to my daughter. We can try for another child later. But I just want my inning to be safe and sound, happy and carefree. This mother-daughter affection act again. I clenched my fists tightly and lowered my eyes, afraid the disgust in them would be too obvious to hide. In my past life, my child also had supermale syndrome. That was the first time I encountered such a thing. In panic, I went home crying to my parents. But what did my parents say at the time? What nonsense about supermale syndrome? Never heard of it. That's your own child, flesh of your flesh, and you want to abort it. Are you even human? Did all your education go to waste? You believe whatever nonsense the doctor says. Without this child, if the Jan family sends you back, we won't take you in. Behave yourself and give birth to the child properly. Don't anger your husband. So many women in this world have given birth. None have been as troublesome as you. At the time, I only thought they were stubborn and ignorant, so they simply had no hearts. Perhaps it was because he had committed too many evils that heaven couldn't stand by and watch. It gave me a second chance at life. And yet, I won the bet. Because in my previous life, the doctor had said, the child's test results show some abnormalities. An extra Y chromosome compared to normal individuals. MS-10. Does the child's father have a bad temper? What does this have to do with Jin Yubai? First I was just puzzled. But when Jin Yubai's parents blurted out, why is it another case of supermasculinity? Could it be hereditary? All the mysteries were solved. Jin Yubai is also a sufferer of supermasculinity syndrome. That's why he's impulsive, quick-tempered, and prone to violence precisely because of this. Jin Yubai's parents placed extraordinary importance on their descendants. With supermale syndrome and low fertility, this child was very likely Jin Yubai's only offspring, a bloodline revered as sacred by the Jian family. That's why they initially looked down on my family, but immediately decided to accept Tan Shuang upon hearing she was pregnant. Afterward, I also looked up related information but found limited details as this type of genetic disorder hasn't been thoroughly researched yet. Some experts claim it's a chromosomal disorder, rather than an inherited disease. But some experts say it can be inherited. Sis, you're more experienced in this area. Do you think I should abort this child? Seeing me remain silent for a long time, just watching the drama, Tan Shuang finally couldn't help but ask me. I felt utterly innocent. How would I know? I've never been pregnant before, and I don't even have a partner this time. Even my parents stood by my side. Come on. Inging, are you so anxious that you're confused? How could your sister possibly know about such things? She knows. She's Rep. The words were on the tip of Tan Shuang's tongue, but she stopped herself. Instead, she sent her parents away and asked me privately, Tenho, stop playing dumb with me. Didn't your child from your previous life also suffer from this illness? How could you not know? With Tan Shuang's vicious nature, if I were to actually bring it up, no matter whether this child has problems or not, in the future, she would blame it all on me. Just like in my previous life when I advised her to complain less about Sonu and think more about his good qualities, whether my intentions were sincere or not, she never cared. She always harbors malice towards me, assuming I'm just like her, unable to bear seeing others happy. So I just vaguely said to her, well, yes, but I have motherly bias. Besides, didn't you see your little nephew in your past life? Tan Shuang suddenly understood as if she had made up her mind. Right, I've seen him. That child didn't look any different from other kids. And the doctor said, as long as he's properly raised, he'll be fine. I can't lose this child. Lose you by. I can't. Using work as an excuse, I stood up to take my leave. Yet on the way back I burst into laughter, setting aside probability issues for now. Let's focus on proper guidance. In my previous life, my child might have been fine simply because I died early before any symptoms could manifest. Or perhaps it was my careful guidance, teaching him how to control his emotions. But this time Jin Yubai's supermale baby was conceived by Tan Shuang, a moody father and a sinister, malicious mother raising a child with supermale syndrome together. Game over. Tan Shuang ultimately decided not to terminate the pregnancy. When the child was born, she even posted on her social media to show off. Mother and child are both safe and sound. And from then on, there was one more person to cherish me. She thought she could live a happy and fulfilling life as a family of 3. But I knew all too well. Her words had turned prophetic, for indeed there was now one more person who would bring her pain. Her real nightmare was about to begin. Sure enough, before she even finished her postpartum confinement, Tan Shuang was beaten. That's right. Jin Yubai had held back only because of the child, fearing he might be left without an heir. It certainly wasn't out of love. After the child was born, he finally had no more reservations, revealing his true nature completely. Kotan Shuang is indeed luckier than me. Seeing the bruises on my daughter, my parents were furious and stormed off to stand up for her. But the Zhang family was no longer as friendly as before. Ask her to breastfeed and she complains about pain here and there. In-laws, why don't you go ask around? See if any other young bride is this delicate. As if none of us have ever given birth. What? When she seduced my son, she let him suck her breasts. But now she won't allow my grandson to do the same. Stunned by this retort, my parents grew even angrier, even threatening divorce. Fine. The child carries our Jan family's bloodline. We'll return your daughter with my son's looks and family background. If your daughter doesn't know what's good for her, plenty of others would be willing to marry into our family. Seeing no way to deal with them, my mother was so overwhelmed with rage that she fainted on the spot. After being rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment, she had already become half paralyzed. Yet, when Tan Shuang and I kept vigil by her bedside, she showed little concern for her elderly mother's life. Instead, she asked me distractedly, "Tenho, I remember in our past life he hit you too, didn't he? Why didn't you divorce him?" Yes, Jin Yubai had hit me too. Why didn't I get divorced? Recalling what my mother said to me at the time, I repeated each of these words to Tan Shuang. If you get divorced, won't you become second-hand goods? Who would want you afterward? All men are like this. If you divorce this one, can you guarantee the next one won't have problems? Jin Yubai is rich and handsome. You should be laughing in your dreams to marry him. You must have done something wrong. Otherwise, why would such a good man suddenly hit you? I always say women should be gentle and virtuous. Don't throw tantrums every other day. You're already a mother, yet you still act like a young girl. Tan Shuang, I didn't lie to you. These were your mother's exact words. From the moment you conceived the idea of swapping lives, there was no turning back for you. How could Zhang Yubai possibly let go of prey like you that delivers itself to his doorstep? Prey that could turn intentional harm into marital conflicts disguised as family disputes. Why didn't I get divorced in my past life? Because it was simply impossible to leave. Tan Shuang didn't stay long at the hospital before returning to the Zhang family, leaving me alone to keep watch. Not that I'm particularly filial. Rather, the doctor said, my mother still has a chance of recovery if she undergoes proper rehabilitation. How can this be? So, after she woke up, I kept chattering away, sharing heartfelt mother-daughter conversations with her. Mom, do you know what kind of life your precious daughter is living now? I recounted to her all the abuse I suffered in my past life. But in her perception, the one who endured such suffering was her Tan Shuang. I watched as her heart ached unbearably, overwhelmed with emotion. If only she had cared for me this much in my past life, how wonderful that would have been. My eyes suddenly felt sore and gritty, something streaming out from within. I continued with my hoarse voice. Do you know why she ended up living such a miserable life? I've known all along what kind of person Zhang Yubai is, and I've known all along that it was him staying in that hotel room back then. But the room was changed because your youngest daughter insisted on it. The man was married because your youngest daughter insisted on it. The child was also born because your youngest daughter insisted on it. Haha. The more I talked, the more excited I became. And so did my mom. She lay on the bed, struggling incessantly like a fish stranded on the shore, gasping for water. Finally, she stopped moving. After composing myself, I put on a mask of anxiety and ran up frantically, tears streaming down my face. Doctor, my mother has fainted again. This time my mother had no chance of recovery. She was destined to spend her remaining years bedridden without her parents' protection. Tan Shuang lived even more miserably than I did in my past life. Perhaps because there was still a trace of curious affection lingering. Zhang Yubai wasn't as cruel to me as he was to Tan Shuang. Yet I couldn't care less, focusing solely on exploiting the Zhang family's weaknesses, snatching away their business. I saw Zhang Yubai again a year later when he realized I was the contact person. A faint smile played on his lips as he approached me unhurriedly. Long time no see, sister. I smiled back at him, no longer feeling the fear I had when I first faced him after being reborn. I arrived quite early, so there was no one else around at the time. Zhang Yubai then chatted with me without any reservations. You and Shuang don't get along well, do you? I tilted my head to look at him, silent. He didn't seem to care whether I responded or not. He just continued speaking on his own. Shuang has been mischievous since childhood, hasn't she? She's taken quite a few things from you. A hairpin, a doll, new clothes your parents love, and a room key. Only then did I realize that back then, the one who should have spent that passionate night with me was my sister. She stole so many things from her sister. How should we punish her? How about breaking her arms and legs if it were right after being reborn? Hearing Zhang Yubai say these words would have terrified me. Anyone would fear power, fear capital, fear the people or things that once tormented them. But times have changed. While he was indulging in abuse, I had already deployed my forces and taken away most of his trump cards. Seeing that I remained unmoved, he leaned in even closer, his breath almost hitting my face. If you're willing, sister, I can help you correct this mistake. I'll divorce her and be with you so you won't have to work so hard building your career anymore. The Zhang Group? I'll hand it over to you. How about it? Before I could speak, my colleague arrived. Director Tan, you're here so early. Oh, Director Zhang is here too. Let me introduce you. This is our Director Tan. She has the final say on this collaboration. What? She's actually not just a junior employee. Only then did Zhang Yubai snap out of it, utterly shocked, tucking a stray lock of hair behind my ear. I smiled at him. President Zhang, what you just said about willingly handing over the Zhang Corporation, does that offer still stand? Watching Zhang Yubai frozen in place, I sneered. Supermale syndrome indeed carries a high probability of intellectual disability. The reason I was trapped by such a person in my past life was simply misfortune. Fresh out of school, I was coaxed and deceived into marriage with no one willing to lend me a hand. If only there had been another choice. After pushing the price down a few more points and signing the contract, I calculated the performance bonus from this deal. I laughed wildly. Breaking free from the strange cycle of marriage, I too have endless possibilities. Over the next 2 years, Zhang Yubai was repeatedly suppressed by me in the business world. He took out his anger on me, then went back and vented it all on Tan Shuang. During that time I also saw Tan Shuang once when I was blind. One leg was lame, and her mental state had collapsed. She seemed on the verge of madness, unfortunately. Her voice hadn't gone hoarse yet, and she still barked at me like a dog. Autumn Tan, why? I clearly swapped lives with you. So why are you still doing better than me? Why is your husband like this? Why didn't you tell me? Let's switch back. I want to switch back with you. You go be that damn Mrs. Zhang and let me be Kotin. Patting her rough face gently, I said softly. You were the one who snatched it away yourself, silly girl. And flashing my employee badge, I pointed to the words on it. Time to start calling me Chairman Tan. The next time I heard news of Tan Shuyang, it was her obituary. They say she was accidentally beaten to death by Jianu due to improper child-rearing. That child might have been born with genetic disorders, or perhaps it was due to family upbringing issues. At just 3 years old, he was already vicious and cruel. Tan Shuang was gouged out by him with a fork. He even deliberately pushed his grandmother down the stairs and made his grandfather drink paint. Truly like a born demon. Realizing his son was beyond redemption, Jubai showed no remorse. Instead, he blamed his wife, It's all because you're useless. You can't even be a proper mother. If it were Tangio, she would never have raised my child like this. As for how I know all this, of course I saw it on a legal program. On screen, Jin Yubai finally dropped his disguise. Tearing off that human mask and roaring like a wild beast, he rattled, shaking the handcuffs and shackles loudly. At the end of the program, the host also educated the audience about the dangers of XY syndrome, advocating for better prenatal and postnatal care. The day I acquired Jang Corporation, I sat in the office chair Jang Yubu once occupied. It was the top floor of the skyscraper, offering a bird's-eye view of the entire city. Everything Tan Shuang had coveted for 2 lifetimes was finally clenched firmly in my grasp. In the end, she never understood. You stand on the bridge, gazing at the scenery, while someone admiring the view watches you from the tower. The mountainside is too crowded. It's better to go see the view from the summit. That's all.